Welcome to the deep dive. We've got a stack of sources here, investigative reports, detailed timelines, profiles, all centered on, well, a really complex and unfortunately still active missing persons case out of Utah.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Our goal today really is to unpack all this information, get to the core details, understand the sequence of events from these materials, and maybe pull out some insights.
Yeah.
Especially about what this case tells us about, how these investigations work now in the digital age.
Definitely. This case, it involves a 15-year-old girl, Alisa Petrov. She vanished back on April 21st, 2025. And what makes it particularly complex right from the get-go is how it went from a local missing report to this multi-state investigation almost immediately.
Right.
And it's heavily reliant on digital evidence.
That digital piece is exactly why we're digging into this. So let's walk you through it. We'll look at who Alisa is based on the sources, the initial circumstances when she disappeared.
Yeah, the lead-up.
Exactly. Then that crucial digital evidence that popped up early, the timeline both online and what happened physically.
And the individuals who've now been charged because of that evidence.
Right. And the huge law enforcement effort involved, crossing state lines, and, of course, her family's ongoing fight to find her.
It's a lot to cover.
Okay, so let's start with Alisa herself. The profile information we have paints a picture. She was 15 when she went missing. Her birthday is April 16th, 2010, so she was just shy of turning 16.
Okay.
Physical description: about 5'3", 122 pounds, brown hair, brown eyes. And the day she was last seen, April 21st, the report says she was wearing baggy jeans, a gray t-shirt, it said Harvard University, on it a black hoodie, and carrying a dark school backpack.
And the timeline for that specific day, April 21st, that's really critical here.
Absolutely.
The sources indicate her mother dropped her off at school, American Fork, Utah, around 9:30 in the morning.
But she never went.
Didn't go to class, no. Security footage actually caught her nearby at a gas station shortly after that drop-off.
Okay. And
Then she was seen getting a ride from an unknown male, the report says, to the UTA Triex station, the light rail, there in American Fork.
so she was already moving.
Yes. From there, the trail shows she traveled to Provo. And the last confirmed sighting we have on surveillance footage is much later that night, just before midnight, on foot in Provo.
Wow. And
Well-
what was she doing in Provo?
Well, what's particularly revealing, according to the sources, is that while she was in Provo, she was actively asking multiple people for help getting to Las Vegas, Nevada.
Las Vegas. And that connects directly to what authorities believe was happening, right?
Exactly. The central theory is she was trying to get to Vegas specifically to meet people she'd connected with online.
Which brings us to the investigation itself.
Right. The South Jordan Police Department jumped on this fast, started the investigation the same day, April 21st. And a really major breakthrough came very early on. It was from a search of Alisa's room, which the family consented to.
And this is where, like you said, the digital side just takes over the narrative. Hidden in her dresser, they found an iPad.
That discovery was absolutely foundational. I mean, crucial. Analysis of that iPad revealed just extensive and very explicit online communications, mostly on Discord and Instagram.
And these weren't just, random chats. They directly linked Alisa to 3 adult men who would later be charged in connection with her disappearance.
Yeah, this wasn't just background color. This was the case initially. It identified the suspects and provided the whole context for why she might have left and where she might be headed.
Okay, so let's dive into that digital footprint. The sources detail quite a bit, and it shows this wasn't some sudden decision she made that morning.
No, not at all. It looks like it was preceded by months of really specific online interactions. The timeline provided in the materials, it shows communication starting way back in January 2025.
January.
Yeah. Matthew Nicholas Menard, he's 35, based in Miami, Florida. He apparently initiated contact with Alisa through Instagram on January 17th, and the sources say despite knowing she was only 15, he continued communicating, and it became explicit.
Explicit how?
Well, the court documents are quite disturbing. They describe his alleged discussions with her, including graphic expressions of intent for sexual intercourse, soliciting sex, sodomy, even child sex abuse material. He even allegedly suggested meeting up in Las Vegas.
Which is where she was trying to go.
Exactly. And even discussed hiring a prostitute for group sex. Just awful stuff.
That's horrifying. And you said there were others.
Yes. William Taylor Glines. He's 37, from Texas City, Texas. He apparently started communicating with Alisa on social media around February 3rd, 2025. And again, the sources state he engaged in sexually explicit chats after confirming her age, which he apparently stated was 14 or 15.
Okay, so Florida, Texas.
In Utah. Samuel Tanka Mitchell, 41, from Harriman, Utah, which is closer to home for Alisa. Communications on Discord with him using the username Samich. They started around April 12th or 13th, so just about a week before she disappeared.
A week.
Yeah. And these conversations escalated incredibly quickly into sexually explicit content.
The sources mention some really alarming details with Mitchell, right?
They do. Alisa reportedly explicitly asked him to kidnap her.
She asked him.
That's what the reports indicate. And they exchanged these increasingly disturbing messages, planning to meet between April 15th and 18th. Alisa even asked him to bring condoms.
Oh, my God.
Mitchell's responses, according to the documents, included explicit sexual language. He apparently referred to her as baby girl.
So this whole timeline, January, February, April, it paints a clear picture.
It does. What the sources describe as deliberate, prolonged online grooming. Not just one interaction, but the sustained effort to build these, well, deeply inappropriate relationships online.
And there was that message just before she left.
Right. The sources note a message from Alisa to Mitchell. April 19th, just after midnight. It said, "I'm running away. Please don't contact me."
2 days before she actually left.
Exactly. Which strongly suggests her plan to leave was premeditated and directly tied to these online contacts she'd made.
Okay, so the South Jordan PD starts investigating on the 21st. Within days, they find the iPad, which immediately points them to these 3 men.
Correct. And Alisa is quickly listed as endangered missing in NCIC. That's the National Crime Information Center database, accessible to law enforcement nationwide. Critical step.
And this is where it really blows up geographically, right?
Absolutely. It shows how these cases work now. A cyber tip came in from NCMSE, the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. They analyzed tips about online child exploitation. That tip connected Alisa to William Glines down in Texas.
So that immediately pulls in another agency.
Right. The Texas City Police Department gets involved. So now you have South Jordan PD, Texas City PD,
Yeah.
NCMEC.
Utah, Florida, Texas.
Exactly. It just perfectly illustrates the multi-jurisdictional nightmare these online cases create. The internet doesn't care about state lines. Predators can be anywhere.
Yeah, the report mentioned Menard in Florida had no connection to Utah otherwise.
Right. Zero physical ties. It just underscores the reach.
Yeah.
And coordinating all that, the evidence, the warrants, interviewing people across state lines, it's incredibly complex for law enforcement, logistically and legally.
A huge challenge.
And the digital evidence hunt didn't stop with that first iPad. A search warrant for Discord confirmed the explicit chats with Mitchell. And then when they did further forensic work on Mitchell's own phone, they found more.
Okay. So based on all this digital evidence, primarily 3 men, 3 states are charged.
That's correct. Let's break down what the sources say about each one and the specific charges.
Okay.
First, Matthew Nicholas Menard, 35, Miami, Florida. Accused of starting the Instagram contact knowing she was 15, engaging in those explicit chats we talked about, the graphic abuse talk, soliciting sex, sodomy, CSAM, the group sex in Vegas idea.
And the charges.
Multiple serious felonies, according to the sources. Aggravated sexual exploitation of a minor, enticement of a minor, criminal solicitation. Basically charges reflecting the exploitation and luring for sexual purposes.
What's his status?
He self-surrendered around May 28, 2025. Booked into Salt Lake County Jail. Held without bond, specifically because he has no ties to Utah, making him a flight risk. His first court appearance was scheduled for early June.
Okay.
Samuel Tanka Mitchell, 41, from Harriman, Utah. The one communicating on Discord, who Alisa allegedly asked to kidnap her. Their chats got sexual fast, remember? The condoms, the baby girl language. He apparently admitted talking to her and planning to meet, but claimed he canceled.
And they found more on his phone.
Yes, 2 really significant things detailed in the sources. First, they discovered he also been communicating inappropriately with a second 15-year-old girl.
Oh, wow.
And second, they found, quote, multiple files of child sex abuse material on his phone.
So his charges reflect that.
They do. 5 counts of sexual exploitation of a minor, that's a second-degree felony in Utah, and 1 count of enticement of a minor, a Class A misdemeanor. He was arrested and is also being held in Salt Lake County Jail.
And the third man?
William Taylor Glines, 37, Texas City, Texas. He's the one who started contact on social media back in February, engaged in explicit chats after confirming her age.
And his charges?
The sources say he faces charges related to communicating with Alisa, but the specific charges weren't detailed in the material we reviewed. He's reportedly still in custody in a county jail down in Texas.
So the investigation led to these arrests, these charges, but the main goal...
Finding Alisa.
Right. That's still ongoing. And her family is Understandably, very active, very public.
Extremely. Her father, Nikolai Petrov, has made some incredibly powerful, heartfelt public pleas. The sources actually include some of his messages directed right at Alisa. And the tone feels, very strategic,
Okay.
focused on reassurance, not blame.
Yeah, like saying, we really need you. You will not be in any trouble for running away. We love you more than anything. We want you back. And we are your best friends for the rest of our lives. Please come back. He even said publicly they don't care what she was trying to do. They just want their family complete again.
That approach, emphasizing safety, forgiveness, love, rather than punishment or anger. It's a common and often effective strategy in these cases, especially when exploitation is suspected. It's trying to break through any fear she might have about the consequences of coming home or reaching out.
Makes sense. And they're putting resources behind it, too.
They are, offering a significant reward, $20,000 for verifiable information that directly leads to her safe return. That's a serious commitment.
And they've launched a whole public awareness campaign.
Yeah, a dedicated website, findalisa.com. They're distributing posters, getting officials involved in places like Texas City to push the message out on social media, trying to cast as wide a net as possible.
And for anyone listening who might potentially have information, the sources provide the number.
Yes, the Salt Lake Valley Emergency Communications Center at 801-840-4000 and reference the South Jordan case number, SJ2511568.
Okay. So where does that leave things now?
Well, as of late May 2025, when this information was compiled, Alisa Petrov remains missing. Her official classification is endangered runaway.
That classification, endangered runaway, is important, isn't it?
It is. It signifies that, yes, the initial assessment is she left voluntarily, she ran away, but crucially, her age and the surrounding circumstances, particularly those documented online interactions.
The grooming, the explicit content, the plans to meet.
Exactly. All of that places her at significant risk of harm or exploitation, hence endangered.
And the investigation, still active.
Very much so. The South Jordan Police Department continues to follow leads, but it underscores again how central the digital evidence was, how vital the multi-state cooperation has been, and yet the search for Alisa herself goes on.
This case, just laid out like this from the sources, it really is a stark, a terrifying illustration of the threat. Online enticement, exploitation, targeting kids. It's not abstract. It's real.
It absolutely is.
So that's our deep dive into the sources we have on Alisa Petrov's disappearance. We've traced the timeline, looked at that absolutely critical digital evidence, the iPad, the messages that blew this open and led to charges against 3 men in 3 states. And we've seen the ongoing efforts by her family and law enforcement to bring her home.
Yeah, it really highlights, doesn't it, how vital digital forensics are now. You almost can't investigate without them. And the sheer difficulty of tackling crime that jumps state lines or even country lines online.
It really shifts the landscape. The streets where kids might be vulnerable, they're not just physical anymore, they're virtual. So this deep dive, drawing from these reports, gives you, the listener, a detailed look at a complex, evolving, and sadly still unresolved case.
It definitely leaves you thinking. About online safety, sure, but also about how quickly these things can escalate online.
Yeah.
The geographical reach, it's staggering, makes old methods feel, well, incomplete.
It really does make you stop and think, doesn't it? Considering everything we've pieced together from this material, like, Alisa leaving voluntarily but being classified as endangered because of who she was talking to, those explicit online conversations building for months, leading right up to her running away, and the sheer physical distance between these men who were charged and Alisa herself. How does a case like this fundamentally change how we even define a missing person or a runaway case now in this digital age?